I look at the Abram model, God tells Abram, get out of your country and go to a place that I'm going to show you.
That's good.
And because I don't know it yet, as a matter of fact, let me just see, Harry, you open up all kind of doors. So blame Harry that we're getting off kilter here. Is it possible that I don't really navigate grief in some of those settings because I stay in a situation because I don't know what's next?
Ooh.
So when God is trying to get me out of a thing,
Wow.
you know, losing people, I hate to say it, is almost easier. Because when I lose them, they're gone. But leaving and losing are two different things.
Come on, teach us.
Sometimes it's easier for me to lose than to leave.
Wow.
So I stay in bad relationships because I'm waiting on you to leave me, because then I can say I lost you.
Ooh.
Instead of me leaving you because I know I'm not supposed to be with you.
Woo. Welcome to the Build My Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Harry Dent III, joined as always by the bridge builder himself, Zach Brewster. Zach, what's going on?
Man, I'm good, brother. Glad to be back filming some topics with you. I'm grateful for the following. Let me go ahead and start there by thanking people for following us, supporting us, and for the feedback.
Yeah.
You know, like we said at the beginning, man, we're just stumbling into places. So I'm always grateful to hear the feedback of people, and it lets us know kind of the type of things they want to hear and how we could improve and sharpen. And the whole thing of this is to continue to build bridges, man. You know, you never get anywhere without a bridge. And so regardless of what state or place of life you're in, our goal is to build that bridge to help you get from one place to the next, from desire to destiny. So we're excited about that. So what's on your mind today, Harry? You had a topic that you said somebody reached out about that we needed to talk about today.
So what's on my mind today, Zach? Yeah, we had a Build My Bridge follower reach out, man. Shout out to D Rush. She was talking about grief.
Okay.
And I want to talk from the thought, navigating grief for growth.
Navigating grief for growth.
Navigating grief for
All
growth.
right, tell me about it.
So when I think about this, you know, the first grief I want to talk about is the anticipated grief.
Okay.
I believe there are moments in our life where we have an understanding that somebody's getting ready to transition.
Okay.
Whether it's through life expectancy, whether it's through some illness, or whether it's through a bad report. There's always an anticipation sometimes with grief. And my question for you is, when you have had an experience where you've known about anticipated grief, how did you navigate through that and get on the other side of it?
Yeah, I think to answer this question, I like to broaden the topic a little bit, because losing a person is one of those things that you never prepare for. I do believe there are several resources for it. So I want to answer your question and broaden your question. I think what happens is you have to make a decision when you're preparing for the loss of someone. Are you going to focus on what you lost, or are you going to focus on what you have left? And I think focusing on what I have left is the legacy that they leave behind. So in that preparation, I'm asking myself, what is the life they lived? And how do I want to honor that life they lived in their absence when they leave this side of life? Because I don't believe life ever ends. I just believe it transitions, and I like that you use the word transition. One of the reasons I want to broaden the topic is because I believe they're grieving people that didn't lose a person, but they lost a job. They didn't lose a person, but they lost a relationship. The person's still alive, but the relationship is dead.
That's good.
They lost status. I used to be at this level in my career, now I'm at that level in my career. They lost connection to a group or a circle or geographic proximity. And so I believe we grieve in several ways that we're not aware of. The transition of life is one of those that is immediate, you know, they're gone, and we go through that. But there are people that are grieving, you know, transparently, Harry, I've gone through a divorce. And what people don't know is when you've been with someone for 15 to 20 years, there's a systematic way that your life goes with that person. When you go through that divorce process, it is a grieving process. Even if you wanted the divorce, even if you were ready to say, hey, this ain't working anymore, there's a grieving process that happens from a standpoint of being able to navigate that issue of not having that person in your life anymore. And although it might not have been what you needed in your life, even your job, even some circles, even a marriage, it still was something. And now having that absence of that something and trying to figure out who you are when that thing is gone is a grieving process. So navigating that from the standpoint of all things has to be, am I going to focus on what I lost, or am I going to focus on what I have left? left.
Yeah.
Because what I have left, even when a person leaves this earth, is a legacy of life that I can honor. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love that because, when we think about what you just said, something that grabbed my attention was the resource piece of it. I think that we have to understand, number one, everybody grieves differently.
That's right.
That's first thing first. Number two, I love to go ahead and put this tagline in there. We're not grief experts. By any means.
No, this is from personal experience,
That's right.
not expertise. Yeah.
There we go. And just having this conversation around it, one thing that sparked it, I remember having a conversation with one of the listeners, and she was describing to me this idea of being the oldest, but being the only one left.
Mm-hmm.
So her brother's transition, sister's transition, family members transition, mom transition. And what do you do when you're the only one left in a circle where you were so involved in with connecting with everybody and being with everybody? And let's just take the personal grief off the table of a person being gone. Let's get back to what you were saying of just anything. Mm-hmm. What do you do when you're the only one alone on a road that's less traveled? What do you do when you're in a situation when you're elevating and everybody else is kind of going behind? What do you do when you want more for your life but you've outgrown less people?
Sure.
So what do you do when you're anticipating a transition, that you're about to go to another level, that you're about to go to higher heights, and there's still that idea of people who are no longer with you?
I think I'm going to have to bring in, you talk about resources, a biblical model for this, because that's the only model I know. And that is, we are accustomed to trade-offs. And I don't think the life that God gives us is always a trade-off. So for instance, we're about to film another podcast. Right after this, I'm going to change this shirt and I'm going to put on another shirt. That's a trade-off. There are times I'm going to be shirtless, though, if I don't know exactly what I'm going to wear.
Wow.
So I got a shirt now, but what if I don't? So when I look at the Abram model, God tells Abram, get out of your country and go to a place that I'm going to show you.
That's good.
And because I don't know it yet, as a matter of fact, let me just see, Harry, you open up all kind of doors. So blame Harry that we're getting off kilter here. Is it possible that I don't really navigate grief in some of those settings because I stay in a situation because I don't know what's next?
Ooh.
So when God is trying to get me out of a thing,
Wow.
Losing people, I hate to say it, is almost easier because when I lose them, they're gone. But leaving and losing are two different things.
Come on, teach us.
Sometimes it's easier for me to lose than to leave.
Wow.
So I stay in bad relationships because I'm waiting on you to leave me, because then I can say I lost you instead of me leaving you because I know I'm not supposed to be with you. I stay in a bad job. It's easier when they fire me because I didn't have the courage to go look for something or resign without something because I knew it was a place of toxicity. I didn't have the courage to leave that circle of people who were bringing me down. Because I didn't know what circle was going to bring me up, but I knew this ain't it. So what happens is, oftentimes, we're looking for a trade-off.
Yeah.
And the reason I can't navigate it is because I'm not willing to leave one thing and have that period of space until I find the next said thing.
Wow.
And what we have to be willing to do is what Abraham did. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I ain't supposed to be right here. So I need to just go ahead and start the process of leaving. And to answer your question, I think then the circle that you need in the season will find you.
That's powerful.
I believe there's a circle for every season.
Yes.
And, there was one circle when I was in K5, and there was a different circle when I was in the 6th grade. And there was another circle when I got to college for the first time. And there was another circle when I first started my career. And over the life of growth, there are different circles. I suggest that we have a thought process that we're going to stay in the same circle all the time, and that's why we can't navigate it. And that's why we can't anticipate the need for change.
That's powerful. That's powerful. So that's the anticipated grief. Now I want to talk about the complicated grief. The grief you didn't even see coming. The blindside grief. The grief that a person was doing everything right, they were healthy, they were kind to people, they were nice to people, and they still got taken away. Have you ever had an incident in your life or a person that you were connected to that you just didn't even know, like you had no idea that they were going to be gone the next day?
Yeah, hey, one of my fraternity brothers that I was close to for 20 years, September of 2023, September 2023, we go to a football game, a bunch of us there, had one of the best weekends I can remember. I drove him home that night from the game, dropped him off, hugged him, told him I loved him. Wednesday morning, I found out he was dead. The healthiest person in my personal circle I knew. I'm talking about running every day, lifting every day, working out every day. Had a life as a major attorney, very philanthropic. Also was still in the military reserves, so he was military trained. But he had a issue that he didn't know about, the doctors didn't know about, and he dropped dead.
Wow.
There's nothing that can prepare you for that, because I think first of all you're in denial. Like this can't be real.
That's good.
And I'll tell you, it's the same system for me in terms of navigating it. I was so thankful. First of all, as a pastor, I was concerned, just being very blunt with you, if I even had those emotions anymore. When you deal with death so much,
That's
so you
good.
think about this, I'm a pastor.
Yeah, that's good.
I've buried so many people for so many families.
That's good.
I'm in HR. I've had to lay so many people off for so many reasons that they didn't see coming. I've had to terminate people.
Wow.
Never enjoyed it, but that they didn't see coming. So for me, those have been unemotional settings. I was actually grateful that I cried. That it did touch me in a way to say, okay, personally, I still have that level of emotion.
That's good.
But what I was grateful for is that the last thing I said to him was I loved him. What I was grateful for is that we didn't see this coming and God did.
Yeah.
And he gave us a weekend before that to have some joy to hold on
That's
to.
good.
And so for me, I think when you don't see it coming, the first thing you have to accept is that I'm not God.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't get to decide when somebody comes and goes. Would I lie to you and say it hadn't been hard some? Because over this last now almost 2 years,
It's recent.
I've seen some people that I've said, ooh, they committing crimes, they're living this way, they're doing this. This is a healthy, philanthropic family man.
Yeah.
God, why is he still here and he's not? If you never asked that question, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, God, why this? But what I've had to understand is I don't live my life in why, I live my life in who. And because I know who he is, I've had to accept that. But it was very hard. It was very complicated. It's still complicated if I dwell on it long enough. So I choose not to dwell on what I've lost. I choose to dwell on what he left me.
That's good.
He lived in Columbia, Harry. I go to Charleston once a month for some activities. Every time I pass his exit, I think about him.
Yeah.
But I choose not to think about him being gone. I choose to think about the things that we enjoyed together. And that's how I choose to live.
Hey, and that's powerful, Zach. You know, something that I was thinking about this from an aspect of something that you did say. You know, I knew people, and at one season of my life, I was in a circle with a lot of people who were committing crimes and doing things that people would frown upon. But it wasn't until I lost 3 people close to me to gun violence. And that was complicated grief for me because I never saw it coming. You know, we say, and I want to go ahead and preface this for people because we say things like, oh, well, there's only 2 options. There's jail, and then, you know, there's somebody getting killed and things like that, and the grave and all that. But you never can really prepare for that.
That's right.
Because once it happens, it's a whole different reality. Because of that idea that you said, oh, this won't happen to me. Oh, I'm good. You never wake up in the morning thinking somebody's trying to come and rob you. You never wake up in the morning thinking that you're gonna get arrested. Nobody wakes up with that on their mind. So when I think about the idea of complicated grief and what you left, like you said, for me it was a mindset shifter. Because I realized if I kept going down this path, then my grief would be complicated for my family. My grief would be complicated for people who love me and who are connected to me. So how can I leave them legacy? And for the first time in my life, I feel like I started to think about legacy. I started to think about life after and how other people can relate to me. So I'm always grateful for complicated grief because it kind of reminds me, just like you said, to go in a biblical sense for a second, it kind of reminds me of the book of Ecclesiastes where there's just fate. We don't know why things happen.
So everything does a season.
Right.
Yeah, that's just life. Yeah.
So it's always beautiful for me to see that mindset that you talk about, you know, the circle of control, the things you can't control, the things that's out of your control, the things you have somewhat control over. And then also the idea that, you know, what did this person leave me? Everybody leaves lessons. Everybody leaves love. Everybody leaves wisdom. Everybody leaves, you know, and then some people just leave what not to do.
That's right.
What mistakes not to make.
Which is still a lesson.
Yes.
Which is still a lesson. Yeah.
So you have the complicated grief. You have the anticipated grief. You already alluded to this And I do want to go just a little bit deeper in that for the sense of conversation about this disenfranchised grief. I never forget experienced my first true real heartbreak.
Okay.
I believe that I experienced so much hurt, so much loss, because I never realized it was grief. I learned about disenfranchised grief in school when I was taking a death and dying class. And I'm one of the people, Zach, you may be the same way, other people watching may be the same way. You learn about something new or hear about a new term, you go and Google, you start to search things, you become a researcher.
Oh yeah.
So when I discovered and learned about disenfranchised grief, I learned that grief is not only people passing away. Grief is the loss. Disenfranchised grief is the loss of something.
Sure.
You can lose an animal. You can lose a relationship. You can lose a job. You can lose a position. So when I think about disenfranchised grief, and again, my biggest thing for people is, and I experienced it real heavy, like I said, with the loss of a heartbreak through a relationship, but also I lost my identity. I lost my identity, and it started way back in middle school. And I never really discovered it until I was about 25 years old. So has there ever been a time where you had disenfranchised grief, or is there a way that you could, solicit some advice or help people navigate that?
I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, you hit me with the last one, because we can talk about losing a relationship, a job, a pet, status. But the worst thing you can lose is yourself. And I think that's the kind of grief that shakes you to your core. The reason I believe that happens is because I've been through, I'm gonna say, identity crisis, where you are trying to fit in instead of stand out. So what ends up happening is you morph yourself into something that's acceptable for the season. When honestly, it's acceptable to everybody but you. Because you are lying to yourself, you are cheating yourself of who you really are. And so for me, I think the biggest way I've had to deal with this, because the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest challenge of losing yourself is forgiving yourself. How did I let them do this to me? How did I let myself get this far gone? How did I allow myself to waste this much time? And so when you start asking those questions, even when you discover that you're off kilter, then you spend the next so many months beating yourself up. I should have known better. I should have done this. I should have done. And then the next relationship, whether it's a job relationship or a personal relationship, suffers because you're trying to make up time that you lost, and now you're overcorrecting. When you talk about driving, especially in stormy seasons, the most dangerous thing you can do is overcorrect. They tell you when you hit an ice patch, let your hand off the wheel. It's scary to do. But what they're saying is if you overcorrect, you'll bring yourself off a cliff, you'll bring yourself off the road. So we overcorrect because we didn't live correct. So because I didn't live correct, I overcorrect. And so what you have to do is, number one, forgive yourself. Number two, start to focus back on yourself. And then I believe you find yourself. I think we do it in reverse. I want to find myself. I can't find myself until I forgive myself.
That's good.
I can't find myself until I focus on myself. And then when I focus on myself, now I can find myself. And then once I find myself, then I have to be committed to being that self in every setting.
That's good.
And what I have to learn is I'm okay with being me, even if that means losing you. Let me say that again. Somebody needs to hear that twice. I'm okay losing me, being me, even if it means losing you, because I'm not going to lose me again.
That's right.
And so that process that I've had to go through, I know what it's like to lose yourself and to beat yourself up and to feel guilty about it. Somebody listening needs to forgive themselves. Somebody needs to start back focusing on themselves, and then they can find themselves. That's what I think.
I love that framework. I love the way that we walk through that. And I want to say this for somebody also who's listening. I've been in a lot of car accidents. I'm not even proud of all of them, to be honest with you.
Don't say it out loud. They might undershoot you.
You know what I'm saying? But the appreciation I have for the process after the accident is there's a replacement on the vehicle. There's a process with the insurance company, but there's also grace that's extended. And the reason for me bringing this up is to let you understand everything got replaced but me.
That's good.
Need for somebody to lean in on this one.
Yeah.
Everything gets replaced but you. So what the car accident does for me is it gives me a redirection to start learning that I'm gonna have to do something different next time I find myself in a situation. Let me get off offense enough and come back on defense. Let me watch for the other car instead of be worrying about what I'm supposed to be doing. Let me stop spending so much time in the rear view because the windshield is bigger in life. So there are times in your life where you gotta realize, even though I lost something, I'm going to continue to lean into what I need to be, to where I need to go, to what I need to do in life. So when you think about this idea of redirection, when you think of this idea of forgiving yourself, once you've forgiven yourself, it's freedom. You set yourself free into a direction that's going to say that, well, I'm going to do this time to reflect. I'm going to reflect on the past experiences, because what I endured, what I overcame, is about to be somebody's free tuition to their next part of life. So they're not going to have to worry about being indebted or paying debt or having to take a student loan, because I'm about to give them the keys to the vehicle. So after they get the keys to the vehicle, now it's time for you to find yourself and really become that authentic version of yourself.
That's good. That's good. I think that's a good note to end on.
Hey, man.
So, those that are listening,
Yeah.
if you've had anticipated grief or complicated grief or disenfranchised grief, take some moments to draw some of this down. You mentioned earlier, we're not grief counselors. We're not experts. Don't be afraid to get help.
That's right.
I do want to say that. Don't be afraid to get help. And inboxes, we have 2 or 3 wonderful counselors that we can refer you to if you're dealing with some grief that you can't get up by yourself. If you got some things you say, hey, these lessons were helpful, but I need somebody to just walk with me, we want to connect you with a counselor after the session.
Hey, absolutely. And y'all see, I got on the mental health is important. I'm a big advocate for that. So thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Build My Bridge podcast. If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe. Drop us a like. Let us know what you think of this episode. I know it was a little heavier, but we do believe in addressing the topics that you guys keep sending in. So send them in. And if you're not, I'm going to have to go ahead and pitch this. The Build My Bridge Masterclass, 28 days of dealing with you. We talked about forgiving yourself. We talked about going back and looking into yourself, but finding yourself. We want to get you from desire to destiny. So make sure that you tune in, tap in with us, and we'll see you next episode.